Hi, and welcome to the review of year 4. And I see here that we still have the same two leaders in profits, Lusso Automotive and Optimus Motors. We have 3 companies over $110 million in profits, actually 4 companies. And that's great. So we have a total of 5 companies over $110 million in profits, which is tremendous. But it looks like most everybody has improved their profits year over year. Now that's really important, that when the industry is growing as fast as this industry in this simulation, over 20% in each of the car classes, your profits should be growing in an equal level to that. Okay, so let's move lower here. Look at points. Okay, so remember, we're trying to get about 500 points. So last round was difficult for a lot of companies to surpass that mark. So 400 was about the top of that round, but that sort of balances out. The first round was very easy to get over 500 points. So next round, year 5, is a critical round for earning as many points as possible. So if you did a lot of, I feel a lot of companies did some asset building in year 4, buying operational investments and plants, and that should pay off well into year 5, and we should see a big spring back of points on year 5. Okay. Now, in the stock price, we have the same. Lusso Automotive is still number 1 in stock price. And the reason they're number 1 is that they have a good amount of profits and earnings per share. And they also, I believe, have been buying back stock to help reduce the amount of outstanding shares. And that's a good little hint. If you buy back your stock, you reduce your amount of outstanding shares, and you improve all your per share statistics. So that helps your points a great deal. And we have JD Auto World, which I also believe has been buying back stock, in the number 2 position in stock price. So what makes your stock go up? Getting earnings, increasing your earnings per share, and buying back stock definitely will help, and increasing your profit margins. Okay, so we have a new sales leader. So our previous sales leader has fallen into second place behind, I'm afraid to pronounce it. I think I know how to say that, but I don't want to mangle anybody's company name. But that we have a new leader in sales, so they just have to translate those sales into profits as best as possible. And we had a lot of companies making a really sharp incline in sales, and we had a company from last place and last round, Generic Motors, coming into surpassing 4 of the companies in sales. So that means they must have greatly improved their forecasting ability. Now earnings per share, so here's the earnings per share. So number 1, Lusso Automotive, and number 2, JD World, and that sort of correlates with stock price. So earnings per share is key to stock price, and 2 ways to increase your earnings per share is to increase your profits or reduce your amount of outstanding shares. All right. Okay, so let's look at some of the charts here, tables here. Okay, so current round points, Optimus Motors had the highest points for the round, and so we had a real range, but no one topped over 500 points this round. Typically, round 4 is a little bit more difficult. I've seen points be higher round 5 more consistently. Now, these gross profit margins have to move up. Now, remember, you started at 40%. So if you're still in, this 40% area, you are way too low on profits. You should be by, the 5th round, you should start entering the 50 or 60 percentile in gross profits. So for round 5, I want everyone to focus really on increasing profits as much as possible. And that's how you win the game. So you could see that this class, as far as profit-wise, if you are below the 70th percentile, you are not doing that well in profits. So generally for a graduate class, I'd expect everybody to be in the top quartile of profits. So the goal for everybody is to get as close to or over 60% in gross profit margins. Okay, so stock price, we went over that before in the chart, and we have a pretty big range in stock price here. And the people with the higher stock prices, the people who have been more efficiently managing their company. It's not that they have that much more market demand, but they're much more efficient in the utilization of their assets, their profits, their capacity, just basically operations and strategy for the company is really top notch here. So we have And again, for this class, I'd expect at least half the students to be in the top quartile of stock price. And right now we only have really 2 students. The northeast order was very close though. Okay, so return on equity. You can easily increase the return on equity by increasing profits. Sometimes return on equity does fall a little bit as you buy back stock and increase your equity pool. Okay, so total points. If you have 2,000 points or more, I think you're easily going to get the full credit for this project. And the people who are 1,800 to 1,900, you're still very possible for actually this 1,700 level up to this 1,900 level. It's still possible to get the full points for this project. Remember, this is a big project for the class, and it takes a lot of work. And the people who've been working very hard in researching, studying, researching the competitors, doing the practice rounds, listening to these videos, watching my lectures. My lectures also include the class lectures for this, the course lectures of the textbook. I also include hints about the simulation in those lectures as well. They put a lot of work in this simulation, and they are doing very well. So this simulation is really not rocket science. It is the basic strategies of business and the basic connection between sales, operations, marketing, finance. So if you're making those basic connections and you have that base understanding, the strategy after a few rounds should be becoming a little bit more easier. But it does take practice and does take a lot of hard work. This isn't a simulation where you just keep going through the motions each round. You really have to put time into it. And anybody who gets to the 2,500 points have obviously put a lot of time in it, because it's really, this isn't a project where everyone gets an A. It's really difficult to get an A in this project. So if you're getting less than the full points, don't feel bad. You still did very well. If you're getting, I think this project's maybe, I'm not 100% sure of the points. Maybe say it's 15 points and you're getting 10 points. That's doing very well. 15 points is doing exceptional. So, and most, I have to say, most people are performing, if you're in the 60 percentile or higher, you're doing well. So, okay, so operating profit margins, again, here you have to watch out for overspending on marketing. So you really need to go to the charts on marketing to see how you're comparing to other people. And the key is, if you're selling more cars, you have the more profits to market a little bit more heavily. So, you have to be careful of that. So if you overmarket, you may be getting too much demand that you're not meeting and wasting a lot of operational profits. So you take the time to figure out how much profits you're making per car and how much you're advertising per car, and see that you have some proportion. So a lot of this game is also doing the math afterwards to see if it makes sense. If the spending you're making on marketing is not eating up all your profits. So you do have to take some time to look at that marketing on occasion. Okay, so earnings per share, we went over that. And net profit margin here is really interest rate. So and taxes. We can't do anything about taxes, but you can start buying back debt and retiring debt, and that will help with your net profit margin. The sales revenue per share, again, you don't have to be number one in sales to be number one in the simulation, although it does help. But what you want to do here is you want to find the right balance between what you're selling and the profits you're making. So sometimes making a car that has less of a demand that generates more of a profit will be more profitable than making a car that generates the maximum demand and selling. I mean, you could sell a car at a loss and be number one in sales and have the most sales, but every car you're selling is a loss. You're not really managing the company right. Okay, total asset return. This is tricky because as you buy new assets, this is naturally going to go lower. But as you utilize your assets more efficiently, it's sort of round 5, you want to utilize your assets more efficiently to make sure that you are effectively utilizing what you got. So you don't want to buy a plant just to make 100 cars. You probably don't want to overinvest now in operational investments because that could generate a lot of assets, although it also generates points when you invest in the company. So that's a tricky one. All right, so let me go to, if you look back at these, let me go to the top. So there is these marketing charts that you should look at closely, and this can give you an idea of where your competitors are marketing. So for each company, you'll get an idea. So if you're down here, if you're orange and your horsepower, you may be underspending in your marketing for your total advertising spending. So you could see how a lot of companies, how it quickly moves up the advertising as the market grows. And that's true. Anytime a market gets more competitive and the sales become bigger, you're going to, the marketing is going to increase. So you should go through here and kind of look at how your marketing compared to your competitors. All right, so let me go to my demo. And in the play demo, I'm going to go through round 5 and see how I do and try to give you some ideas about performing well into round 5. Okay, so last round I got 400 points, which was similar to many people in the course. So my goal now is, if I look at, so the motions I'm going to go through, I'm going to first check out where I left off in profits. I left off at 60% gross profits, so I want to beat that. And I could check my assessments here to get some hints about my forecasting, my increasing stock price. It's good to go through here and get a lot of hints about how you can improve your score. And of course, I would go through my charts. Most importantly, this performance charts. And this is, I recommend everybody doing this, going to the right to the bottom of your performance charts and see what your sales were versus your demand. So I missed out on some trucks, and I only sold 5,000 sedans. I could have sold 5,600. So if sedans are going to increase by a certain percentage, which is detailed in the student user guide, say it's, I'm not sure, 25%, I'm not going to go off my actual sales from last round. I'm going to go from what I could have sold and increase that. So I always want to increase my blue bar 5,600 by, say, whatever percentage I think the market's going to grow by, to make my new forecast. So that's really a critical chart to review of these individual performance. And then you should spend a lot of time in this industry area and look who the number 1, 2, and 3 company is, and see how you compare your results, how you're making your cars, how much your total advertising budget is, your market potential, your profit margin is compared to your competitors. And this will give you a good idea of, how you're competing and things you could do. Financials are important, but you could review them. I'm not exactly sure. Some students actually do make spreadsheets and calculate their year-over-year points and utilizing some of the financial statements. Okay, so here we're in sales, and again, we see that customer expectations have increased. My prices have increased. Importance factors have stayed the same. My operational cost reductions have increased due to the excessive amount of operational operational investments I made last round. So here I'm going to fill in the sales area. I'm going to pause it while I fill it in. Okay, so I'm back in the sales. I took the time. I paused it so I wouldn't waste your time. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to, it's a delicate balance of trying to not disappoint my customer expectations, getting in my customer expectation range, or sometimes going below it if it's not that important to my customers, because I'm trying to really push up my gross profit margin. So I'm making a car that's not going to be in as much demand because I am putting a high price on it and not really meeting my customer expectations, but I'm adjusting my forecasts accordingly to recognize that my car is not going to be the best out there. But that's okay, because I'm really focused on profits now. And don't think that companies don't do this. This is a very common strategy for many companies. And if you look around at a lot of products that you buy, you'll see that the packaging is smaller, you're getting less cereal, less Oreos, that you're not getting as much metal in some different, when it used to come to cars or different items and materials, you may see that they substituted some metals for some plastics, or they've done different packaging or design things that have made the car less expensive, and maybe the product doesn't have as good strong features as it used to have, but they're doing that hoping you don't notice and hoping to increase their profits. So it's a very common tactic in business. Now, if I was competing on being number 1 in quality, number 1 in features, and put a very high price on that to sell it as sort of, that was my branding, that's a strategy too. But in the automotive game, it's pretty much here we have to try to balance our customer expectations with our profits as best as possible. So for each of the areas, I've reworked, re-engineered my cars to be in a modality where my strategy here is to kind of disappoint on my customer expectations a little bit and put a higher price to get my higher earnings per share. Now, I've invested a great deal in my cost reductions, and that's going to help me to increase my profit margins over last round, and that's really key to doing well in the simulation. And that's something I've stressed since round one, to invest in operational investments to get your profits up. So for each of the cars, I've gotten above the 60% average gross profit I had last round. And I've double checked my forecasting to increase it for the amount that the market's increasing, in reflecting the fact that these cars aren't as good as I made last round, so my demand will probably be a little bit lower. So it's all an estimation. It's sort of an intuitive feeling of how I'm doing this, but I paid close attention to the student user guide and the forecasting module to guide me in the percentage increases round per round. Now, these reflective observations, you don't have to fill them out, but it would be interesting and useful to read them and think about them as you're going through the simulation. Now, on the marketing page, you should really go to user guide, student user guide, and it details the percentage of effectiveness for each area of marketing. So I'm going to take some time to look at that and fill it in, but I'm going to pay close attention to these expectations down here. So this is sort of where the market's moving towards. So I'm going to try to at least be within this range for most of my cars, and maybe for the car that's most profitable, I might spend a little extra money advertising that, but I'm going to pay close attention to what's most effective for my customers. And I'm just going to pause it while I put that in, and I'll meet you back in production. Okay, so now in production, I am going to have to buy a couple of plants here, which is unavoidable because I did the math, and buying the plant, since I'm going to be utilizing it 100% of its capacity in this round, makes sense for me to buy the plant because I'm going to make more profits than the plant is costing me in assets. All right, so I'm meeting my production, and since this is our last round, you buying these operational investments, I'm never going to get a chance to utilize them, but I don't want to lose points. You do make points in increasing your operational investments year over year, so I'm just putting some money in here just to increase my points so that I don't lose points in the operational investment area, because analysts look at how people invest in their companies, and if you invest in your company to improve it year over year, you get points for that as far as the analyst in the overview section. So I'm just increasing these to get those points in the overview section, knowing full well that I won't be able to take advantage of this because we're not running around 6 due to the time constraints of this short class. And again, reading these reflective observations do give you a little bit to think about what you're doing here and hopefully improve your score. Okay, so now to the finance department. So the first thing I always suggest you do in the finance department is look at the very bottom and say, I have $200 million in surplus cash. So I'm going to go and try and pay off as much of my debt as possible. Now there is a limit. You can't pay it off completely, so there's a limit to how much I can pay down on my debt, and that's common for certain loans you take. They do have limitations of how much you can prepay or pay back early. And I'm going to buy back a fair amount of stock to increase my earnings per share, and you can see here that my earnings per share goes from 26 to over 27. But remember, the stock prices are pretty high now, so people with higher stock prices, it's going to be harder. It's going to be spending more money to buy back your stock, and you're buying back fewer shares than if you did it earlier in the game. Although the students who have a low stock price going into this round will have a better ability to buy back, and I suggest them to buy back as much stock as possible, take advantage of that low stock price. Okay, so I've done everything I can do. I'm increasing my sales greatly. I'm increasing my profits greatly. My assets have increased as well, but in a smaller percentage to my profits and overall surplus. So I'm ready to process this and hopefully get over 500 points is my goal, to earn over 500 points this round. Okay, 560 points. I did it, and that's great. So I was able to move my gross profit percentage from 60 to 68%. So that only got me 14 points, but my operational increased because I was a little bit more focused on my marketing, and my net increased because I bought back debt and reduced my amount of interest in that. Also, buying back debt also increased my quick and debt ratios. Let's see, my return on investment declined a little bit because I did buy a lot of assets, all those plants, and my return on assets and total asset turnover suffered a little bit because I did buy a lot of assets, but I did that because I needed them. So I'm not going to try to earn a lot of points in return on assets to sacrifice everything else, because I wanted to increase my sales greatly, which I did. And it helped to increase my return on equity, buying back stock. My earnings per share went up. My return on assets went up because my profits went up. My stock price went up. And my forecasting, it wasn't perfect, but it was close enough for what I needed. And I had a surplus, so I got my 500. And I earned 35 points from the investments I made in the operational investments. So I got up to my 560 points, which I'm very, I would say I'm very happy with. Okay. So that's my advice for completing round 5. Pay close attention to the profits. Do the best you can in round 5, and hopefully you can get the points you need to get a perfect score on this simulation. Now remember, the simulation, this is one of the most difficult aspects of the class, and it wasn't designed for everybody to get a perfect score. And generally what I do, I have a pretty good normal distribution on the grades on the simulation, where I have some people getting the perfect score, most of the class getting a nice amount of points in the middle, and then a few people not underperforming a little bit. And that's just the normal way grades go in any type of project. So that's all I have to say today. So I hope that this video was useful in helping you to do better in the last round and get as many points as possible. I would also suggest at this point, if you aren't doing as well as possible, you can go into your individual practice. You can reset your practice. There's a little button to reset your practice back to round 1 and run through 5 rounds again. And you try to get, run through the rounds a number of times, going from 4 to 5 and seeing what makes sense in that practice game before you try it in the real game. So kind of testing out some of your ideas and some of your strategies to see if they work in the practice game, and then you can translate them into the team competition game. Okay, that's it for me today. Good luck, and I wish you the best on the last round. So far the class has gone by very fast. I'm very happy with the amount of effort people have put into the course, and I will talk to you again soon.